Eric had always thought of himself as a dog lover. Growing up, his family had owned several dogs, each one leaving an indelible mark on his heart. Now in his mid-30s and living alone after a painful breakup, Eric felt that familiar longing to bring a furry companion back into his life. However, this time was different. He wasn't just looking for a dog to fill a void. He wanted to give a second chance to one in need. One rainy Saturday afternoon, Eric decided to visit the local animal shelter. He had no particular breed in mind, just an open heart and the hope of finding a connection. The shelter was busy, filled with the sounds of barking and the excited chatter of families meeting potential pets. Rows of kennels lined the walls, each holding a dog with a unique story of hardship, resilience, and survival. As Eric walked down the aisles, he stopped to greet each dog, offering a gentle hand and a kind word. Some jumped up eagerly, tails wagging furiously, while others barked for attention. But as he approached the end of the row, a quiet figure caught his eye. There, in the last kennel, lay a pit bull named Ruby. She didn't bark or jump like the others. Instead, she lay curled up in the corner of her kennel, her head resting on her paws. Her eyes, large and amber-colored, held a sadness that Eric couldn't ignore. Something about Ruby's demeanor tugged at his heart. He crouched down in front of her kennel, resting his elbows on his knees. "Hey there, girl," he said softly, his voice filled with warmth. First, Ruby didn't move, but then, slowly, she lifted her head and looked at him. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, as if something unspoken was passing between them. Eric noticed her eyes glistening, and then it happened. Tears began to fall. A soft whimper escaped her lips, and she shuffled closer to the bars of her kennel. Eric's breath caught in his throat. He had never seen anything like it. "Is she crying?" he asked aloud, his voice tinged with disbelief. One of the shelter workers, a woman named Megan, overheard him and walked over. "That's Ruby," she said gently. "She's been here for 8 months now. She used to be so lively, but being here has been hard on her." "What's her story?" Eric asked, still mesmerized by the pit bull's soulful gaze. "She was surrendered by her owner," Megan explained. "They loved her, but they fell on hard times and couldn't afford to keep her. Ruby's a sweetheart, but people tend to overlook her because of her breed. She's been passed over so many times, and I think she started to lose hope." Eric felt his heart break a little. He couldn't imagine the pain Ruby must have felt, being loved, then losing everything she knew, only to be ignored day after day. "She doesn't deserve this," he said firmly. "No dog does." Eric stood up and looked at Megan. "I'll take her." Megan's face lit up with a smile. "Are you sure? She's a bit shy, but once she trusts you, she's the most loyal dog you'll ever meet." "I'm sure," Eric replied without hesitation. When the kennel door opened, Ruby hesitated. She stepped forward slowly, her movements cautious, as if she couldn't quite believe what was happening. Eric knelt down and held out his hand. "It's okay, girl," he said gently. "You're safe now." Ruby sniffed his hand, then pressed her head against his chest. She let out a deep, contented sigh, and for the first time in months, her tail gave a little wag. Bringing Ruby home was the start of a beautiful journey for both of them. At first, she was timid, sticking close to Eric and watching his every move. But with patience and love, Ruby began to blossom. Her tail wagged more often, her eyes sparkled with happiness, and her playful side emerged. Eric learned that Ruby loved going on long walks in the park, rolling in the grass, and cuddling on the couch during movie nights. She had a quirky habit of tilting her head whenever he spoke to her, as if she was trying to understand every word. Ruby also brought a sense of healing to Eric. After his breakup, he had felt lost and unsure of himself. But Ruby's unconditional love reminded him of what it meant to care for someone deeply. She became his confidant, his protector, and his best friend. One day, Eric decided to take Ruby back to the shelter, not to return her, but to visit. He wanted the staff to see how far she had come. Ruby greeted Megan and the other workers with excited barks and a wagging tail, a stark contrast to the withdrawn, tearful dog they had known. Megan was overjoyed. "This is the Ruby we always knew was in there," she said, tears in her eyes. Eric shared their story on social media, hoping to inspire others to adopt. The post went viral, with thousands of people moved by Ruby's transformation. Donations poured into the shelter, and several long-term residents found homes thanks to Ruby's story. Eric often reflected on the day he met Ruby, thinking about how close he came to walking past her kennel. That moment of connection had changed both their lives forever.